Plant diversity. So further information, but botany, I think it's botany. Let's try this one.
Botany.
Yeah, so botany, plant, algae, non-vascular plant, vascular plant, and spermatocyte. Let's try this.
Spermatophyte.
Yeah, or spermatophyte. Okay, I got that way off. Anyways, for further information, you can see these individual articles as always. Let's continue further. So plants are mainly multicellular organisms, predominantly photosynthetic eukaryotes of the kingdom Plantae. Let's try that pronunciation here.
Plantae.
Yes, yeah, so Plantae. Botany is the study of plant life, which would exclude fungi and algae. Botanists have studied approximately 410,000 species of land plants, of which some 391 species are vascular plants, including approximately 369,000 species of flowering plants, and approximately 20,000 are bryophytes. Let's try the pronunciation here. Let's click this and
Bryophytes.
Yeah, so bryophytes there. All right, let's dive into botany. So MES note, vascular plants, from Latin vasculum or duct, also known as Tracheophyta. Let's try this.
Tracheophyta.
Or Tracheophyta, or the tracheophytes from Greek over here, trachea or trachea. Try this.
Trachea.
Or trachea, arteria or windpipe plants form a large group of plants, around 300,000 accepted known species that are defined as land plants with lignified tissues. The xylem, I think that's pronounced.
Xylem.
Yeah, the xylem for conducting water and minerals throughout the plant. They also have a specialized non-lignified tissue, the phloem. Try this.
Phloem.
Oh, phloem.
To conduct
All right. Yeah, the phloem to conduct or transport products of photosynthesis. Yeah, so I always thought this was phylum, but I think it is phloem. As I even googled it, and it's still phloem. Anyways, we'll get to this lignified tissue soon. So basically, vascular plants have pathways such that you have tissue called the xylem for conducting water and minerals throughout the plant, and as well as specialized non-lignified tissues called the phloem to conduct or products of photosynthesis. Yeah, so you have water, minerals, and then you have photosynthesis material. So, and here's an illustration of this, and let's just see if we're pronouncing lignified properly. I think we are.
Non-lignified.
All right, so that is correct. And continue further. So the phloem in orange, make this a bit smaller. All right, so phloem in orange transports products of photosynthesis to various parts of the plant. So you have photosynthesis right here. There's light coming in, and it's going to be transporting it up and down across the entire plant. And so photosynthesis products is in the phloem. And then you have water and minerals, the xylem, or the xylem right here, and that is in the blue. And you got it from all the way to the bottom, water going up, etc., all throughout. The water minerals from the roots coming all the way up. And so lignin, and this is dealing with this lignified tissue. So lignin. So lignin is a class of complex organic polymers that form key structural materials in the support tissues of most plants. Lignins are particularly important in the formation of cell walls, especially in wood and bark. And bark is the outermost layers of stems and roots, because they lend rigidity and do not rot easily. Yeah, and chemically, lignins, let's see if I pronounce this one.
Lignins are polymers.
Yeah, so lignins are polymers made by cross-linking this one, phenolic. Let's see this.
Phenolic.
Yeah, so phenolic precursors, which is a dash OH bonded directly to an aromatic hydrogen hydrocarbon group. So there's that aromaticity And so essentially it is a very strong molecular setup there. And yes, it has delocalized electrons and so on. And a ring structure. Continue further. So wood is a porous and fibrous structural tissue found in the stems and roots of trees and other woody plants. It is an organic material, a natural composite of cellulose fibers that are strong in tension and embedded in a matrix of lignin that resists compression. And cellulose is an organic compound with the formula C6H10O5 and then N, then all in brackets N, which is a polysaccharide consisting of a linear chain of several hundred to many thousands of glycosidically linked glucose units. Cellulose is an important structural component of the primary cell wall of green plants, many forms of algae, and the omocytes. See this?
Oomycetes distinct.
Or oomycetes, which is a distinct fungus-like eukaryotic microorganisms. Some species of bacteria secrete it in forms. Secrete it, so cellulose, to form biofilms, and many microbes sticking to each other and often the surface. Cellulose is the most abundant organic polymer on Earth. The cellulose content of cotton fiber is 90%. That of wood is 40 to 50%, and that of dried hemp is approximately 57%. Yeah, which is very interesting. Basically, a whole bunch of sugars, thousands of sugars, all linked together. So glucose, that sugar unit, or the saccharides there. Are we going further? A glycosidic bond. Remember, this one is, or glyco. You can have it spelled like this. This is with glycosidic bond or glycosidic linkage is a type of covalent bond that joins a carbohydrate sugar molecule to another group, which may or not be another carbohydrate. And in this case, it links a whole bunch of glucose units together. It's pretty fascinating. All right, and here is some different types of wood here, over here. So you have aspen, pine, spruce, larch, etc. Juniper, hornbeam, birch, alder, beech, oak, elm, cherry, pear, maple, linden, and ash. That's very, very fascinating setup over here. And that is wood. So going further, so the flowering plants, also known as angiospermae, spermae. Let's see this.
Angiospermae.
Or angiospermae. So we'll go there. We mentioned flowering plants here. Yeah, so going back here, so botanists have studied approximately 410,000 species of land plants, of which 391 species are vascular plants that have this setup, the xylem and the phloem, including approximately 369,000 species of flowering plants, and approximately 20,000 are bryophytes. See this?
Bryophyte.
Yeah, bryophytes. And yeah, so most of the land plants are flowering. You have 369,000 out of 410,000 species that were studied. And let's go to, let's learn up on flowering plants. So the flowering plants, also known as angiospermae, meaning hidden seeds. Yeah, in Greek, so meaning hidden seeds in Greek, are the most diverse group of land plants with 64 orders, 416 families, approximately 13,000 known genera or genera. Let's see how this is pronounced. And
Genera and
genera and 300,000 known species. They are seed-producing plants, have flowers, and produce fruit. So they're seed-producing. They produce seeds, have flowers, and produce fruits that contain the seeds. So the fruit contains them. Etymologically, let's see this pronunciation.
Etymologically,
angiosperm literally means a plant that produces seeds with an enclosure. In other words, a fruiting plant. Yeah, so plant produces seeds with an enclosure. In other words, it produces fruits which contain the seeds. So it produces fruit that contains seeds. So a flower is a reproductive structure found in flowering plants. And a fruit is the seed-bearing structure in flowering plants that is formed from the ovary after flowering. In the flowering plants, an ovary is a part of the female reproductive organ of the flower. It is an enlarged basal, which is forming the base portion of the pistil. Let's try this.
Pistil.
Or pistil, which is the female organ of a flower. The ovary contains ovules, which develop into seeds upon fertilization. the ovary itself will mature into a fruit, either dry or fleshy, enclosing the seeds. And that's very interesting. The ovary itself will mature into a fruit. Very fascinating stuff here. Let's continue further. So here's a figure right here. Let's make this a bit smaller so we could read some here. So figure, this is from Britannica.com. So how flowering plants reproduce. So reproduction of flowering plants begins with pollination, which is a transfer of pollen from anther to stigma on the same flower or to the stigma of another flower. I'll see the pronunciation of stigma here.
Stigma.
Yeah, so stigma. Of another flower on the same plant, which is self-pollination, or from the anther on one plant to the stigma of another plant, which is cross-pollination. Alright, so let's have a look at this here. Actually, let's keep reading and then we'll look into it. So once the pollen grain lodges on the stigma, a pollen tube grows from the pollen grain to an ovule, and then 2 sperm nuclei, hence called double fertilization, then pass through the pollen tube. Actually, let's just go over here. So how flowering plants reproduce. So you have the anther right here is the male or reproduction system of a plant or organ. So here's a filament, there's the anther. Then you have a pollen grain from it, and it has to go to the stigma of either of itself. So it's self-pollination. So it goes from the anther, pollen from anther, to stigma. Yeah, stigma on the same flower, or to the stigma of another flower on the same plant. And these are types of self-pollination, or from the anther of one plant to the stigma of another one. So pollen to stigma. So the key one is the pollen from anther to stigma, or you can do cross-pollination to the stigma of another one. So right here. So here is, if you break this apart, so the pistil is a structure that contains the ovary, there's a styla, the long tube, and there's a stigma, the opening over there, and there's a sepal, this flower little edge there. There's a petal of the flower, and so on. That's the flower setup. And this pistil right here, here's a zoom in of that. So this right here is zoom in over here. And then, yeah, so that is that setup. And then if you look at that is the stigma over here, the female reproductive organ. And then you have, this is the anther over here, the male one. Alright, so that is, let's just erase all this. Alright, so once the pollen grain gets into the stigma, goes on the top, now you have pollen tubes, and then the sperm nuclei goes down. So you have 2 sperm nuclei go down, 2, and this is hence called double fertilization, then pass through the pollen tube. The pollen tube, not pollen. One of them unites with the egg nucleus and produces a zygote. So you have one of these here, sperm nuclei, and then it goes up and merges with the egg nucleus. So egg nucleus right here, and there's the polar nuclei. These polar nuclei are part of the female setup, and then what happens here is, so you have one of the nuclei connects with the egg, and then the one of them unites with the egg nucleus and produces a zygote, so produces this right here, and the other sperm nucleus unites with 2 polar nuclei to produce an endosperm nucleus. So then the other one connects with these 2 over here, these polar nuclei, and then it forms this endosperm nucleus. It essentially provides nutrients and, I believe, structural support to that seed. So yeah, it's very fascinating. Yeah, and then the fertilized ovule develops into a seed. So yeah, this is a fertilized ovule, or these are ovules inside here, and then they develop into a seed. And you get an embryo there, and then eventually grows into a seedling, into another plant right there. So there's a seed coat, there's an endosperm is inside, provides nutrients and support, I believe structural support as well, because you could just look at it. Embryo, there's a seed, and there's a seedling over there. So fascinating stuff here. And let's look at that cross-pollination again. So figure self-pollination and cross-pollination. So you have the anther to the stigma on the same flower, or that's A, that is self-pollination, or the anther of one flower to the anther of another flower on the same plant, that's B, that's self-pollination. And then the next one is, you have over here, it goes from the anther of one flower on one plant to the stigma of another flower on another plant. That's cross-pollination. Fascinating. All right, so let's continue further. So a seedling is a young sporophyte. Let's try to pronounce this.
Sporophyte.
Yeah, so sporophyte developing out of a plant embryo from a seed. And a sporophyte is the diploid multicellular stage in the life cycle of a plant or alga, so, which is singular of algae. And let's try to pronounce this. See what this says.
Algas.
Yeah, so alga. Yeah, and this sporophyte is a diploid multicellular stage in the life cycle of a plant. Diploid, so it has 2 times the haploid, which is the egg nucleus. I mean, the sperm nuclei and the egg have half, and then emerges. Now you have diploid, so 2x of the haploids. Yeah, so that's 2 sets of chromosome, 2 sets of every chromosome there. Yeah, and so the seedling is a young sporophyte, and in flowering plants, the sporophyte comprises the whole multicellular body except the pollen and embryo sac, which contained in the ovule there. So essentially, pretty much everything but the gamete producers. So bryophytes, let's go over here. So this was flowering plants. We covered them. And let's look at the next one and there's approximately 20,000 bryophytes that have been studied out of this 410 total, 410,000. So a very small percentage. That's about 5% of them are bryophytes. Yeah, so bryophytes or bryophytes. Let's look at this one right here. Pronunciation.
Bryophytes.
Yeah, so bryophytes are a hypothetical taxonomic division containing 3 groups of non-vascular plants, embryophytes, the liverworts, hornworts, and mosses. So the key is non-vascular. And bryophytes produced enclosed reproductive structures called gametangia and sporangia. Let's just look at this. So it's enclosed.
Gametangia.
Gametangia and sporangia. Let's try this.
Sporangia.
Yes, sporangia, but they do not produce flowers or seeds, and they reproduce via spores. Yeah, and note also that flowering plants also reproduce via spores, and yeah, so the difference between these bryophytes is that they don't produce flowers or seeds, and I would assume that the spores are more similar in size, just because here there are 2 kinds of reproductive cells produced by flowers to show that they're also spores. So microspores, which will divide to become pollen grains, and they are the quote male cells. And then the quote female cells called megaspores, under the mega versus micro, usually bigger, so which will divide to become the egg cell in a term called megagametogenesis, are contained in the ovule. All right, now we're going to discuss biological life cycle and the different kinds. So in biology, a biological life cycle, or just life cycle, or life cycle when the biological context is clear, is a series of changes in form that an organism undergoes, returning to the starting state. In some organisms, different generations of the species succeed each other during the life cycle. For plants and many algae, there are 2 multicellular stages, and the life cycle is referred to as alternation. Alternation of generations, and we'll go over that in a bit. First, let's go over this life cycle in general. So, life cycles that include sexual reproduction involve alternating haploid N and diploid 2N stages. So that's the sets of chromosomes here. So you have 1 set. This one we have 2 sets of every chromosome. Yeah, so you have these stages right here, i.e. a change of ploidy is involved. To return from a diploid stage to a haploid stage, meiosis must occur. And let's just refresh on meiosis and mitosis. So meiosis, let's go all the way back. And right here, let's go all the way over here. Yeah, so if this meiosis right here, you start off with this diploid, so 2 sets of every chromosome. So 1 here, 1 there, and then these ones. And then what ends up happening is they double up, and then they divide over here and exchange genetic material. So this one will be double. They duplicate. Now you have this is 4 sets of every chromosome. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you have 2. So now 1, 2, and then it goes again. So you go from 1 cell here, which is diploid. Now you have 4 haploid cells after duplication. Just fascinating. And here's just a comparison with mitosis. And mitosis just clones body cells. You get diploid to diploid. So this one you'll split it up. These were diploids here. There's 2 sets of each one. So yes, initially you would have this, and it would duplicate and then split in half. But then you're going to have, so this would be the same setup here. So you're starting off with a diploid, which is 2 sets of 1, 2, and then there's 1, 2. Now you have again 1, 2, 1, 2, and they split up. And this one here, you go from the diploids, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then it would duplicate, and then you do meiosis twice. So then this would be, if you have this together, it would be 4n, and then divides into 2n. Now these ones divide into 1n. So you go from the initially 2n to 1n. Or in that stage where you duplicate, you have 4n, 2n, 1n. Yeah, so you get 1 cell to 4, and this one you get 1 cell to 2. It's fascinating. Alright, so now let's teleport back over here. So in regards to changes of ploidy, there are 3 types of cycles. You can have a haplontic life cycle. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Haplontic.
Yeah, so haplontic life cycle. So what you have is the haploid stage is multicellular, and the diploid stage is a single cell. And meiosis is called, quote, zygotic. And we'll get over that in a bit. And then you have the diplontic life cycle. This involves the diploid stage. The 2n is multicellular, and haploid gametes are formed. And meiosis is, quote, gametic. Just a note here. So the only time that there is a diploid in the haplontic stage, so that is the single cell called the zygote. I believe that would be. So meiosis is zygotic, and then this one meiosis is gametic. This is the meiosis creates the gametes here. Yeah, that is true. And this one here, the haplontic one, the diploid stage involves meiosis creating the zygote from the haploid. So you get the haploid to the zygote, and the diplontic you have a multicellular that's 2n, and then it creates a haploid gamete. So yes, now it makes sense. It took me a lot of research when I paused the video and just go over all this and make it make sense. So then the other one is the Haplodiplontic. Let's try to pronounce this.
Haplodiplontic.
Haplodiplontic. Whoever makes these names. Life cycle, also referred to as diplohaplontic, diplobiontic, or dibiontic life cycle. Yeah, and this is multicellular, diploid, and haploid stages occur. And meiosis is quote sporic. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Sporic.
Yeah, so the cycles, or these ones, differ in when mitosis or the duplication or cloning growth occurs, where you have diploid to diploid, etc., or haploid to haploid. Zygotic meiosis and gametic meiosis have one mitotic stage, and mitosis occurs during the end phase in zygotic meiosis, so in the haploid phase, and during the 2n phase in gametic meiosis. Yeah, in the diploid stage for gametic. Therefore, zygotic and gametic meiosis are collectively termed haplobiontic, which has just one single meiotic phase. Not to be confused with haplontic. So it's not the haplontic. So this is a bio in there. So this is a combination of these two in terms of the types of meiosis: zygotic and gametic meiosis. And this one is not the same as this. This is a dye inside there. So this does not have a dye. Going for the sporic meiosis for this Haplodiplontic life cycle, on the other hand, has mitosis in 2 stages, both the diploid and haploid stages, termed diplobiontic. And again, not to be confused with diplontic. So this diplontic, this is diplobiontic. There's some wild naming. So life cycles of plants and algae with alternating haploid and diploid multicellular stages are referred to as a diplohaplontic. That's this one right here. It's the same thing. Right, the equivalent terms are Haplodiplontic. That's this one here, and or diplobiontic and dibiontic are also in use, as is describing such an organism having a diphasic ontology. Yeah, and here's added more notes, and also let's do the pronunciation on this ontogeny.
Ontogeny.
Yeah, so ontogeny is just the origination and development of an individual. It's just a study of that. Life cycles such as those of animals in which there is only a diploid multicellular stage or referred to as diplontic. Yeah, and basically, yeah, so basically animals are just always growing as multicellular, as multicellular organisms. That's diplontic. And then life cycles in which there's only a haploid multicellular stage are referred to as a haplontic. So you have the N chromosomes that keeps duplicating. This one, the multicellular stage is diplontic, is 2N, etc. for animals, and this is for life cycles. Yeah, for other ones, usually algae and so on. Continuing further, and so just to make things more clear, I'm going to read a very similar write-up on this, but from this website. This is vcbio.science.ru.nl, just because it provides more context as opposed to this Wikipedia one, which is just a whole bunch of terms. And so 3 types of life cycles can be distinguished on account of the timing of the mitosis in the haploid and or diploid phase. So haplontic, in haplonts, the mitosis only occur in haploid cells. This can result in the formation of single haploid cells or a multicellular haploid organism. The haplontic life forms produce the gametes through mitosis. And then after fertilization, a zygote is formed. Yeah, so the gametes are produced by mitosis, and then after fertilization, a zygote is formed. This cell is the only diploid cell. This cell is the only zygote is the only diploid cell in the entire life cycle. It is thus that same zygotic cell that later undergoes meiosis to divide back into a haploid, or a N chromosome as opposed to 2N. A haploid life cycle is found in most fungi and some green algae like chlamydomonas. Let's pronounce this.
Chlamydomonas.
Chlamydomonas. Okay. And a diplontic right here. In diplons, mitotic division mitotic divisions only occur in diploid cell. It's basically the reverse of the haplontic. And gametes arisen through meiosis. Gametes arisen through meiosis as opposed to mitosis right here. Gametes through mitosis. And this one, gametes arisen through meiosis. So gametes through meiosis are the only occurrence of the haploid phase. And then the diploid zygote formed after fertilization can however divide mitotically. Yeah, so basically you have the zygote in diploids, in diplontic life cycles. That is the one that divides mitotically and keeps growing. As opposed to the other one, you have the zygote is going meiosis to get half the sets of chromosomes, and then that multiplies either as individual cells or multicellular, as a collective multicellular organism. Going further, so the diploid zygote formed after fertilization can, however, divide mitotically. This process results in the production of a multicellular diploid organism, or in the production of many diploid single cells. Yeah, so again, you could have a multicellular organism or just many cells of these diploids. Animals, for example, belong to the diplonts. And then you could have the merger of this a Haplodiplontic. In Haplodiplontic, the mitoses occur in both diploid and haploid. And I think it's pronounced mitoses. Let's just see the pronunciation.
Mitoses.
So the mitoses occur in both diploid and haploid cells. Such organisms go during their life cycle through a phase in which they are multicellular and haploid, the gametophyte, and a phase in which they are multicellular and diploids. Yeah, so they're always multicellular, and these types of life cycles. And then if it's haploid, it's gametophyte. If it's diploid, it's sporophyte. The phenomenon is called alternation of generation. This Haplodiplontic type of cycle is found in all land plants and many algae. And here is a figure from that same website, so that vcbio.science.ru.nl. So we have types of life cycles. So you have the N phase, the haploid. So for the diplontic in animals, what you end up having is, you only have a diploid multicellular organism or many cells, and then this mitosis only occurs here, in growth. And then what happens here is, this produces gametes through meiosis. So it gets gametes through meiosis. You can either release it, or so then release it. You have this part of it here. So you release it, then the next cycle here you have gametes your gametes plus another one, and then they fertilize and they create the zygote and the zygote mitosis all the way into the diploid multicellular organism. And that is in the in the diploid stage. So the only time that you have haploid is the gametes. And then in Haplontic, what you end up having is, you have the haploid single cell or multicellular organism right here. It's in the haploid stage as opposed to the diploid. And then what you end up having is mitosis can form either spores or gametes. And here's teleported over to our to the definition of spores. Spores are a unit of sexual or asexual reproduction that may be adapted for dispersal and for survival, often for extended periods of time in unfavorable conditions. And spores form part of the life cycles of many plants, algae, fungi, and protozoa. And so basically they're setups of where you can disperse your genetic material or this organism material, etc. And it's similar to gametes, but you're dispersing it for a later time to be able to survive unfavorable conditions and so on. And teleporting back here, and spores, they can produce the gametes and so on, such as microspores and megaspores for flowers or flowering plants. Anyways, let's go back over here. So you could either go with gametes right here, or you can go via mitosis to spores there. Then when you have fertilization with another gamete, you get a zygote. And then the zygote's the only time where you have a 2N or a diploid organism there. And the zygote to go back into the haploid, then it would do meiosis to go back. And you can either go as spores or just keep growing. Yes, you can keep growing as using via mitosis into this bigger organism or bigger collection of cells. So you got to go with spores over there. It's very, very fascinating. And then the Haplodiplontic, this is plants and some algae. You have both stages. You have a diploid multicellular organism that keeps growing right here, and then it produces a zygote there. Actually, no, that's the other way around. This would produce it would have meiosis to divide back into either spores or this haploid multicellular organism. And then this can also keep dividing, keep doing mitosis, dividing, and growing bigger. So now you have a second unique organism, or just a whole bunch of cells there, and that can keep growing. So you have two distinct stages, and then with mitosis creates the gametes, and then when you have another one, you can fertilize, and then you get the zygote, and the zygote can grow as big as this one here. So it has two distinct stages there, and it can alternate in plants and algae, and some algae. So it's very, very fascinating. All right, now let's look at this alternation of generations. That's dealing with this right here. All right. So alternation of generations, also known as metagenesis or heterogenesis, is a type of life cycle that occurs in those plants and algae in the Archaea plastida. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Archaeplastida.
Archaeplastida, often synonymous with the kingdom Plantae, but includes some of the non-green algae. We'll get to that in a bit. And the heterocontyphyta. Let's try this.
Heterocontyphyta group.
Heterocontyphyta group, which is a group of Heterocontyphyta, which is a group of protists that have distinct haploid sexual and diploid asexual stages. In these groups, a multicellular haploid gametophyte with N chromosomes alternates with a multicellular diploid sporophyte with 2 N chromosomes made up of N pairs. So you have N pairs of chromosomes, and if you have 2 of each, that's 2N, or diploid. And the sporophyte is dealing with the multicellular diploid, and then the gametophyte is the multicellular haploid. A mature sporophyte produces haploid spores. So there's the sporophyte. Haploid spores by meiosis. And there's the process which reduces the number of chromosomes to half from 2N to N. This cycle from gametophyte to sporophyte, or equally from sporophyte to gametophyte, so from gametophyte to sporophyte, or other way around, is the way in which all land plants and many algae undergo sexual reproduction. The relationship between the sporophyte and gametophyte varies among different groups of plants. In those algae which have alternation of generation, the sporophyte and gametophyte are separate independent organisms, which may or may not have similar appearance. That's an interesting one. May or may not. Going further here, so in liverworts, mosses, and hornworts, we'll get to those later, the sporophyte is less well developed than the gametophyte and is largely dependent on it. So the gametophyte is more developed than the 2N phase there, so the haploids phase. Although moss and hornwort sporophytes can photosynthesize, they require additional photosynthate from the gametophyte. And just note this photosynthate, this is just resulting products from photosynthesis, usually sugars. Yeah, so basically, although moss and hornwort sporophytes can photosynthesize, they require additional photosynthate or products from photosynthesis, usually sugars, from the gametophyte to sustain growth and spore development and depend on it for supply of water, mineral nutrients, and nitrogen. By contrast, in all modern vascular plants, the gametophyte is less well developed than the sporophyte. So this is the vascular plants is opposite of these liverworts, mosses, and hornworts. This one, the sporophyte, is less well developed than the gametophyte, and the other way around is for these vascular plants, the gametophyte is less well developed than the sporophyte. Yeah, which is very interesting. So going further here, although for vascular plants their Devonian ancestors, or going back in the geological ages, had gametophytes and sporophytes of approximately equivalent complexity. In ferns, other plants, the gametophyte is a small, flattened, autotrophic protohalous. And this protohalous, let's see the pronunciation actually.
Autotrophic prothallus.
Yeah, so this prothallus is just a term for the gametophyte of ferns and other similar setups. So on which the young sporophyte is briefly dependent for its nutrition. Yeah, so in this case, the young sporophyte is just briefly dependent on this one, and some other ones you have equal complexity of them, of the gametophyte and sporophyte stages. And then you can have it, there's a spectrum of them. You could have a complex sporophyte, less complex gametophyte, or complex gametophyte, or gametophyte. Yeah, gametophyte, not gametophyte. See this pronunciation?
Gametophyte.
Whoops.
And is
Alright, I don't know why it's not working. Yeah, let's try that again. I just have to pause my computer for a bit.
and is
Whoops, go back here.
gametophyte.
Yes, gametophyte, yeah. So going back here, yeah, so in flowering plants, the reduction of the gametophyte is much more extreme. It consists of just a few cells which grow entirely in the sporophyte. So just like pollen grains and that egg, egg cells, and the ovules are very, very tiny, and then basically the whole entire time it's and it's inside the sporophyte. So basically most of it is just sporophyte, so that diploid like flowers, etc. And then the very extreme reduction. The gametophyte is very just small few cells, and then they grow. And then after that stage, they get the zygote, which is the diploid, and then it just keeps growing. So it's very, very fascinating. And just want to go over further this note right here, this Archaea plastida. Let's see the pronunciation.
Archaeplastida.
Yeah, so Archaeplastida, this is kingdom Archaeplastida, is a taxonomic group comprised of land plants, green algae, red algae, and glaucophytes. See this?
Glaucophyte.
Yeah, glaucophytes. And this is from biologyonline.com. And glaucophytes are a small group of freshwater unicellular algae. It is sometimes used in synonymous to plantae or plantae.
Plantae.
Yes, plantae. However, the stricter use of the term plantae is one which includes only the land plants and green algae, as opposed to red algae and this other setup here. The Archaeplastida, Archaeplastida is more general in including the red algae and the glaucophytes.
Glaucophyte.
Or the glaucophytes. Let's see the full pronunciation.
And the glaucophytes.
Or the glaucophytes. Alright, interesting. Alright, now let's continue further, and now let's look at a general diagram showing the alternation of generations between a diploid sporophyte at the bottom and a haploid gametophyte on the top. There's a general setup right here. This is about the same size of complexity and number of cells. And the gametophyte and the sporophyte is diploid, haploid. So what we have is alternation of generations. You have the sporophyte, you have meiosis to produce spores, and you go from 2 N chromosomes to N chromosomes. So go from diploid to haploid, and then the spores can be stored for later and or preserved for later, or they can also do mitosis and grow into more cells into an organism right here, a gametophyte, which is a multicellular setup here of haploid cells right there. And then this could also produce gametes via mitosis. Yeah, I believe it's mitosis. Yeah, and then what you'll have is fuse with another gamete, and you get fusion or fertilization, you get a zygote. So you go from N to 2N, or you can go from meiosis to go 2N to N right there. And then this mitosis or grows zygote into more cells, etc., into this diploid sporophyte. Just fascinating stuff. Let's continue further now. Yeah, let's read up more specifically on the gametophyte and so on. So the gametophyte is the sexual phase in the life cycle of plants and algae. It develops sex organs that produce gametes. Haploid, which are haploid sex cells that participate in fertilization to form a diploid zygote, which has a double set of organisms. Yeah, so those are the this is the gametophyte, and then this produces sex organs to produce the gametes right there, and then they fuse, and there's fertilization and fusion, and so on to get the diploid zygote right here. And the egg-producing gametophyte is known as a megagametophyte. Let's just see how this is pronounced. Let's click this.
Megagametophyte.
Yeah, so megagametophyte. This is the egg-producing one is called a megagametophyte because it is typically larger, and the sperm-producing gametophyte is known as a microgametophyte. Pollen is a powdery substance. Again, we're dealing with flowering plants here. Yeah, so it's a powdery substance consisting of pollen grains, which are male microgametophytes of seed plants, and which produce male gametes, which are sperm cells. Yeah, so the male gametophytes in flowering plants are the pollen grains. And this is what makes up pollen. And these pollen grains produce male gametes, or the sperm cells right there. And yeah, so here's some, this is, I believe, an electron, or just not, this is a zoomed in, a highly magnified image. I believe it's just optical, that's what I would assume. But anyways, yeah, actually I think it is optical, because optical can go, up to 1,000 plus zoom magnification. Anyways, let's continue further. So the image is magnified some 500x. So the bean-shaped grain in the bottom left corner is about 50 micrometers long. So this one right here is about 50 micrometers, and that is a millionth of a meter. So 1 micrometer is 50. I mean, 1 micrometer is a millionth of a meter, so that's 50 millionth of a meter. So it's fascinating stuff. We'll take a look at these types of pollen right here. So pollen from a variety of common plants. You have sunflower, which is, this is the taxonomical name. So remember, it's italics, so you have genus, and then you have the species in italics. So this is the Helianthus anus. Well, let's just pronounce this here.
Helianthus annuus.
Yeah, Helianthus annuus. All right, so that's sunflower. This is small, spiky sphericals, colorized pink. So small, spiky sphericals, and then these are colorized pinks, so right here, etc. Yeah, those ones. And then the next one is morning glory. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Ipomea purpurea.
So Ipomea purpurea. It's big sphericals with hexagonal cavities and colorized mint green. So you have these ones there, the big ones, hexagonal cavities inside, so 6 sides is a hexagon. And it's a spiky there. And then we have hollyhock, which is, this is here.
Sildalsa malviflora.
Sildalsa malviflora. This is big spiky sphericals, colorized yellow. So you have these yellows right here, big spiky ones over there. And then the next one is a lily, and then the taxonomical name is?
Lilium ordum.
Lilium ordum. It's a bean-shaped, colorized dark green, and that's a dark green one right here. Is the bean-shaped. Looks like a bean there, so on. And continue further. So we have a primrose, which is this.
Enothera fruticosa.
Enothera fruticosa. All right. It's a tripod-shaped, colorized red. So tripod. There's a tripod shape. That's a very interesting pollen setup there. And yeah, the image is 500x magnification, so fascinating. And now let's continue further. Let's look at those liverwort and hornwort. Actually, those are later. But right now, let's look at, or just to read up on this, angiosperms, or in other words, flowering plants. In angiosperms or flowering plants, the gametophyte is reduced to only a few nuclei and cells. Yeah, so as opposed to see this alternation of generations, another one you'll just have a few of them. Yeah, so just a few cells as opposed to a distinct, really, or as opposed to similar complexity of the sporophyte, gametophyte. Yeah, so going over here. So in angiosperms, flowering plants, the megagametophyte is reduced to only a few nuclei and cells and is sometimes called the embryo sac. A typical embryo sac contains 7 cells and 8 nuclei, one of which is the egg cell. And 2 nuclei, termed polar nuclei, fuse with a sperm nucleus to form the endosperm, which becomes food storage tissue in the seed. And yeah, let's read up on that extreme case here, that wording here. So alternation of generations, and then in flowering plants, the reduction of the gametophyte is much more extreme. It consists of just a few cells, which grow entirely inside the sporophytes. Yes, fascinating. So it doesn't look like this is the general case, but for flowering plants, it's going to be only a tiny few of these, as opposed to a whole bunch of these, as opposed to this one's a collection of a bunch of cells in a multicellular organism. The other one could be just a few cells. So instead of multicellular organism, it'd just be multi-cells, or multicellular, or just multiple cells. Anyways, continue further. So here's a liverwort. So figure liverworts, hornworts, and mosses are modern bryophytes. Remember, these don't have the fruits or seeds. These are just the types of plants that develop via spores, but without fruits or seeds. Yes. So liverworts are named for the liver-shaped. Yes, liver here. Yeah, liverworts are named for the liver-shaped leaves on some species. And it's over here. So yes, some species will have that. Hornworts are named for their horn-like sporophytes, and there's mosses like that. Anyways, fascinating stuff. All right, let's continue further, and now this is the diversity of plants. A whole bunch of different kinds of plants here. That's pretty wild how many kinds there are, and so on. That's fascinating. Got some strawberries there. That's the only one I know. This one might be liverwort. That could be liverwort. Anyways, continue further. And that's a flower. So algae is a large and diverse group of photosynthetic eukaryotic organisms. Included organisms range from unicellular microalgae, which are microscopic algae invisible to naked eye, or to the naked eye. Yes, such as chlorella. Oh, let's see this pronunciation.
Chlorella.
Oh, yeah, chlorella. Prototheca, or let's see this.
Prototheca.
Or prototheca, all right. And the diatoms, see this.
Diatoms.
Diatoms, all right. Diatoms. Oh yeah, let's call them diatoms. Interesting. So diatoms to multicellular forms such as the giant kelp, which is a large brown alga. Alga, let's see this.
Alga.
Yeah, alga. Most are aquatic and autotrophic, so they produce their own energy, and lack many of the distinct cell and tissue types, such as stomata, xylem, and phloem, which are found in land plants. Yeah, so basically algae are photosynthetic, and they range from unicellular microalgae to multicellular forms, and most are aquatic and autotrophic, and lack many of the distinct cell and tissue types, such as stomata, xylem, phloem, etc. in land plants. So so basically they're photosynthetic, but they don't have some of the parts that land plants that lab plants do, etc. The largest and most complex marine algae are called seaweeds, while the most complex freshwater forms are the this one, Charophyta.
Charophyta.
Or Charophyta. Charophyta. All right. Let's continue further here and just compare plant and algal. I think this is singular. Algae is plural. Similarities and dissimilarities of algae and plants. So there's alga and there's a plant right there. It's a bit blurry, but that's the best I can do. Figure this is from slideshare.net. Yeah, so alga surrounding water supports the alga, so it's supporting water, in this case supporting it. This one you'll have a stem that's supporting it. Yeah, so you have the stem supports and may photosynthesize as well. And you have the acute, so there's a leaf, photosynthesize in the leaf. Stem could do it too, is interesting. And then this is the cuttle or cuticle or cuttle, that was called. That prevents water loss. And then the stomata allow gas exchange. We'll get to that in a bit, in a close-up of it. And there's the whole alga, photosynthesizes, absorbs water, O2, and minerals from the water. And then a holdfast anchors the alga. And then roots anchor plants, absorb water and minerals from the soil, aided by mycorrhizal fungi. Yeah, so that is the general setup, difference between alga and a plant right there. Fascinating. But note that interesting, they both photosynthesize here. So yeah, this is the whole plant does it, and this is stem and leaf. Yeah, the stem may, but then leaf is where general photosynthesis occurs. And I was going further. So a mycorrhiza, this is the aided by let's just see the pronunciation.
Mycorrhiza.
Yeah, mycorrhiza. So a mycorrhiza, this is the aided by mycorrhiza fungi or mycorrhizal fungi in the roots to absorb water and minerals from the soil. So from Greek, mycus, or let's see this.
Mykes.
Or mykes, fungus, meaning fungus. And this right here, rhiza, meaning root. So fungus root. Plural is mycorrhizae, or mycorrhiza, or mycorrhizas. See the pronunciations.
Mycorrhizae, mycorrhiza, or mycorrhizas one.
Yeah, so basically this is mycorrhizae, and this is mycorrhiza, and this is mycorrhizas. As a mutual symbiotic association between a fungus and a plant. So these are mutually coexist together. So basically, mycorrhizal fungi just means just a term. Means that fungus and root are coexisting in a symbiotic relationship. Yeah, so they're coexisting, etc. And then again, that's from the word stems from it as well. So mycorrhiza, fungus, and root there, and there is the cohabitation or coexisting of the fungus and the root of the plant. Anyways, continue further. A plant cuticle. Let's see the pronunciation.
Cuticle is.
Yeah, a plant cuticle. So this one here, cuticle prevents water loss and stomata allows gas exchange. So a plant cuticle is a protecting film covering the epidermis of leaves, or the outside layer, skin layer, or the outside cell layer. Young shoots and other aerial plant organs without permaderm, which is the outer layer of bark. So it doesn't have bark, but it has a plant cuticle. And this is a protecting film. This prevents water loss. It consists of lipid and hydrocarbon polymers impregnated with wax and is synthesized exclusively by the epidermal cells. Yeah, so the epidermal cells or outer cells synthesize and create. And it looks like this. So here's water beads on the waxy cuticle of kale leaves. It's absolutely fascinating. So it's waxy on there. It's layer on top, and it just prevents. Let's see, it was prevent water loss. So yeah, so notice how water on top of it. Yeah, to illustrate how it acts as an impermeable surface. Water doesn't go out or in, or it tries to hinder it. Anyways, waxes are a diverse class of organic compounds that are lipophilic, malleable, which are deformable solids near ambient temperatures. And lipophilicity, let's see the pronunciation here.
Lipophilicity.
Yeah, lipophilicity from Greek, this word meaning fat, and friendly refers to the ability of a chemical compound to dissolve in fats, oils, lipids, and non-polar solvents. So this is fat loving. Yeah, so waxes can dissolve in fats, oils, lipids, and non-polar solvents such as not water. Yeah, so not water, but so oils and etc. And then autotroph, we already got over this one here. So yeah, over here. So most are aquatic and autotrophic. So we've gone over, but I'll just read it again. So an autotroph or primary producer is an organism that produces complex organic compounds such as carbohydrates, fats, and proteins using carbon from simple substances such as carbon dioxide, and generally using energy from light, photosynthesis. Yeah, or inorganic chemical reactions, chemosynthesis or chemosynthesis. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Chemosynthesis.
Yeah, so chemosynthesis. Yeah, so that is the primary producer. It produces it from light, etc. Yes, it produces complex organic compounds using carbon from simple substances such as carbon dioxide. So a heterotroph, from ancient Greek heteros or other, and trophy, nutrition, is an organism that cannot produce its own food, instead taking nutrition from other sources of organic carbon, mainly plant or animal matter. Yeah, so it can't produce its own food, so it has to eat other food or take in other food that does. So this is a secondary producer. This would be a primary one there. Let's continue further here. Let's look at this diagram. Yeah, so taking a look at this diagram here to illustrate the heterotroph versus autotroph. So cycle between autotrophs and heterotrophs. So autotrophs use light, carbon dioxide, CO2, and water to form oxygen and complex organic compounds, mainly through the process of photosynthesis. So that's a green arrow. And both types of organisms use such compounds via cellular respiration to both generate ATP and again form CO2 and water, the two red arrows. So what you have here, you have plants, algae, and many bacteria. These are autotrophs. So what they do is, yeah, these produce organic compounds, or complex organic compounds, and they take in CO2, water, etc. You got water, and they take in light, etc. So I'll just erase this. Yeah, so that's what they take in. At the same time, they also produce some CO2 waste over here, but not as much. Notice the green arrow of notice the red arrow is not as dark, is not as bright as this one here. And then basically, this and it also produces oxygen. And then the heterotrophs, which are animals, fungi, many bacteria, they eat these organic compounds, yeah, that are produced. And these could be, well, either in these, they produce it by eating this, or eating other animals that eat this. Yeah, so animals. So if an animal eats, if an animal eats that, you can eat the animal, and then you'll have access to its goods. And then basically this also wastes water and carbon dioxide in respiration. That's very fascinating. Let's continue further. Let's continue further. So now here is an image of microalgae. So chloropus. Let's see the pronunciation.
Nanochloropsis
Yes, so nanochloropsis, microalgae right here. Yes, very fascinating. It's a very, very small microalgae. I believe those are, let's see, go back above. I think those are below the, so it's not visible to the naked eye. So yes, you need a microscope to look at these. It's pretty interesting setup. All right, continue further. Now here is a Fucus serratus. See the pronunciation here.
Fucus serratus.
Yeah, Fucus serratus is a type of seaweed. And take a look at that. It's pretty interesting setup. Going further, a stoma from, let's see the pronunciation, or stoma.
Stoma.
Yeah, so stoma. So a stoma from Greek, this word meaning mouth, and plural stomata. Let's see the pronunciation.
Stomata.
Stomata. I think, stomata, stoma, or stomata. Also called a stomate. See the pronunciation here.
Stomate.
The stomate, plural stomates, is a pore found in the epidermis of leaves, stems, and other organs that controls the rate of gas exchange. So it's a pore, it's an opening in the epidermis, and it looks like this right here. Yeah, so figure magnified leaf stomata, or stomata. Stomata, see the pronunciation again?
Stomata.
Yeah, so stomata, and this is from Shutterstock.com. So stomata, or stomata. I was calling it stomata earlier. I'm not 100% sure which one is which is the correct one. But anyway, stomata. So you have this is, if you zoom in there's some pores that open and close, and they can regulate gas exchange and so on. And yeah, controls the rate of gas exchange. So yes, you can open and close, and as well as H2O can leave, and oxygen gas can leave O2 out and in, etc. That's an open stomata. This is a closed one. Yeah, closed one, open one. And they're zooming in over there. So fascinating. So magnified leaf stomata, schematic, opened and closed. And let's continue further here. All right, so non-vascular plants are plants without a vascular system consisting of xylem and phloem. Instead, they possess simpler tissues that have specialized functions for the internal transport of water. And vascular plants, on the other hand, are a large group of plants. A large group of plants. This is about 300,000 accepted known species. And the C refers to circa, which is Latin for around or approximately, that are defined as land plants with lignified tissues, which is the xylem for conducting water and minerals throughout the plant. They also have a specialized non-lignified tissue, the phloem, to conduct products of photosynthesis. And vascular plants include the club mosses, horsetails, ferns, gymnosperms, including conifers, and angiosperms, or the flowering plants. All right, continue further. So seed plants or spermatophytes. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Spermatophyte.
Yes, or the spermatophytes comprise 5 divisions, 4 of which are grouped as gymnosperms. See this?
As gymnosperms.
Yeah, gymnosperms, and one is angiosperms. And gymnosperms includes conifers, cycads.
Cycad.
Yeah, cycads, and then this is ginkgo. See this?
Ginkgo.
Or ginkgo, and this is gametophytes. See this?
Gametophytes.
See that again? Let's try this again.
Gametophytes.
Gametophytes, yeah, gametophytes. And then gymnosperm seeds develop either on the surface of scales or leaves, which are modified to form cones, or solitary, containing a single seed, as in yew. See this?
Seed plant.
Oops, this is wrong button. This one here.
Yew.
Yeah, yew, and this is Toria ginkgo. As in yew, Toria.
Toria ginkgo.
Yeah, Toria ginkgo. Yeah, so basically you have the seed plants or the spermatophytes. They comprise 5 divisions. One of them is the angiosperms, or the flowering plants. And then the other 4 are these gymnosperms. And these gymnosperm seeds develop either on the surface of scales or leaves, which are often modified to form cones, or solitary, containing a single seed, as these types right there. Emmius, note the term gymnosperm comes from the composite word in Greek. Yeah, so these conifers, in other words, trees and so on. So this gymnosperm term comes from the composite word in Greek over here, gymnos, which is naked, and sperma, or seed, literally meaning naked seeds. The name is based on the unenclosed condition of their seeds, called ovules, in their unfertilized state. Yeah, so they're unenclosed there. And the non-encased condition of their seeds contrasts with the seeds and ovules of flowering plants or angiosperms, which are enclosed within ovary. Very interesting. So a conifer cone, in formal botanical usage, strobilus. See here?
Strobilus.
Or strobilus, pearl strobili. See this?
Strawbilly.
Or strawbilly is an organ on plants in the division Pinophyta, or conifers.
Pinophyta. Conifer.
Or conifers, that contains the reproductive structures. The familiar woody cone is the female cone, which produces seeds. The male cone, which produces pollen, is usually herbaceous and much less conspicuous or obvious to the eye, even at full maturity. Yeah, which is very fascinating here. So this is unenclosed one. Compare that with, so if you have apples, those are fruits of a apple tree, and then they have flowers as well, which is interesting. Anyways, this one is these conifer cones, and we'll show those right here. So here's a pine, is any conifer in the genus Pinus of the family Pinaceae. Let's see this Pinaceae here.
Family Pinaceae.
Or Pinaceae. Interesting. So here's pine cones. So figure, this is from Quora.com. So the female cones grow in the upper branches, which they may be fertilized by pollen blown on the wind from the male cones. That's some fascinating stuff. And male cones grow in the lower branches. The lower branches there is the more upper ones there, and there's the pine cone. So that's a female cone. Yeah, and the female cone, that's the familiar woody cone or pine cone that you've likely seen a whole bunch of these ones there. And yeah, so that's the female cone, and that produces the seeds. And recall again that the gymnosperm name comes from the Greek meaning naked seed, and literally means, naked seeds. And the name is based on the unenclosed condition of their seeds. And this is as opposed to flowering plants, such as, even if you consider apples. So apples are enclosure that contains the seeds. And apples from an apple tree, and also there's also flowers that bear the fruit, which is the apples, which contain the seeds, which is quite amazing. And going further here, so gymnosperm seeds develop either on the surface of scales or leaves, which are often modified to form cones. So the seeds form on the surface of scales or leaves, and modified to form cones. So you can have this, for example, here is a modified leaf slash scales, and they contain the seed. So here's the type of seeds, a comparison. This one's a good comparison to illustrate the differences between gymnosperm and angiosperm. So this is from slide2doc.com. So types of seeds. So gymnosperm seeds, this is a closed cone, and it contains a cone. There's a cone scale. That's a scale there. And then there's an immature seed inside, and then as the seed ripens, gets bigger, and there's a cone scale changes up as well, and this opens up. So the cone is opened up, and the seed is naked, it's just bare. It's not being enclosed, such as this one here. So angiosperm seeds and fruits, for example, a tomato, that's a fruit, and it contains the seeds. And an apple is a fruit that contains the seeds, so enclosure that encloses the seeds there. And this is a Chinese lantern. That's a very interesting fruit. So there's a fruit, and then there's seeds inside. So compare that here. So these seeds are open, and it looks like this over here. So you have them all open up over there. Now here is so that's an animation. Let's look at a real image of this. So here, so if you have figure right here, gymnosperm naked seed. This is from biodiversity introbio.wordpress.com. So you have these. So there's the seeds inside here, inside this cone set up there, inside there, and they open up. As they open up, there's the scales on the sides, and there's the seeds inside, which is quite fascinating stuff there. And the seed inside looks like that. So you have, this is the outer part of that. I think that would be this part here. I would probably consider this. So the seed's probably somewhere inside there, is my guess. Because you can see here, that's a seed over there. And so the seed's over there as it opens up. Let's just erase these. All right, let's continue further here. So here is a mature female coulter pine. Let's see the pronunciation.
Coulter pine.
So coulter pine, or Pinus coulteri. See this?
Pinus coulteri.
It's Pinus coulteri cone, the heaviest pine cone. This is opened up inside. It's very fascinating stuff over there. And now if you look at the male pollen cones, the male ones, so it looks like these. You may have seen these as well, but they're not as widely seen as these pine cones over there. So this is from joshfectow.com. So open male pollen cones below new needle bundles is late May. So this over here, and the wind could blow off pollen, etc., and it can go and hit these cones and then form a fertilized zygote, etc. It just goes and is able to reproduce and further, which is quite amazing. So if you think about it, especially for trees, which is not as straightforward as flowers specifically. Or non-flowering plants, such as so angiosperms. So it'd be pretty cool to see this in real time, or a time lapse of this occurring. Anyways, continue further. This is a horsetail. Horsetail, and the reason we're going over that is I mentioned that earlier, just right here. Let's see the horsetail. So this is part of vascular plants. So vascular plants include the club mosses, horsetails, ferns, gymnosperms, including conifers, and angiosperms. So horsetails. Let's see how this looks like. So this is a horsetail over there. This is a vascular plant. So yes, it looks like a horse's tail on a green one. And this is this term as well. I think it's also called this.
Equisetum.
So equisetum for equestrian, I believe, that for horses, etc. Anyways, let's make this a bit bigger, and let's zoom back. Now this is a fern. So this is an unidentified fern at Cambridge Botanic Garden. And it's a fern set up like that, unidentified one over there. So it looks like that. Anyways, continue for this vascular plant. So angiosperms are the most diverse group of land plants with, these are flowering plants, with 64 orders, 416 families, approximately 13,000 known genera. Let's see this.
Genera and
Genera. Yeah, so 13,000 known genera and 30,000 known species. 300,000 known species. Like gymnosperms, angiosperms are seed-producing plants. They are distinguished from gymnosperms by having characteristics such as flowers, endosperm within their seeds, and production of fruits that contain the seeds. Very fascinating stuff.